Like Ronald Reagan, I believe that if we lose freedom here, there is nowhere else on earth to run to. That is why preserving freedom is so important. And with this in mind, I would like to talk to you about the new Reagan film starring Dennis Quaid. But before I do, I want to play the trailer for you so you get a little hint of what I'm about to talk about, because this is going to be a partial review, and then I want to talk about my impressions, because I believe that this is an important film that every American should see. But before I get into it completely, take a look at this trailer.
I was a brand new KGB officer, given my first intelligence assignment. A certain actor and union leader.
Dutch, there's a purpose for your life.
You can run from a bully for so long, but after a while, you're gonna have to stand up to him.
There's about to be another war right here in Hollywood. The commies on one side, the mob on the other. And you're right in the middle, son.
Hello, I'm Nancy Davis.
Hello, Nancy Davis. I'm Ron Reagan.
I'm curious, Ron.
What would you say is the issue of our time?
No question about it. Communism and the Soviet Union.
It's you!
I'm running for governor, and I would like your vote.
I forgot your name. Do his initials help? RR? Honey, Roy Rogers is here! And he's running for governor!
Ronnie, remember when we met? You told me that you wanted to make a difference in this world. You know what you have to do.
Governor Reagan again, typically, is against such a proposal.
There you go again.
But he was not afraid to take us on.
There's nothing a retired governor can do about the Soviets, but a president.
Now he can do a thing or two.
Welcome to your life.
I was a lifeguard on a river.
There's no turning back.
And I learned how to read the currents. Not just the ones on the surface, but also the ones deep underneath the water. I am about to start the biggest war of this century, and I'm not gonna fire a single shot.
You're gonna blow up 8 years of diplomacy.
Well, if you think that got their undies in a wad, you just wait.
What did the president know, and when did he know it?
What would you have me do?
I want you to fight!
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Now, this film, ladies and gentlemen, is a film that you're going to want to see on the big screen. It's not a movie that you're going to want to wait until it comes out on DVD and Blu-ray or some streaming service. This film deserves to be seen on the big screen, and it is well worth the price of a movie ticket, believe me. I haven't been to the movie theater in about 2 years. So I was very impressed because Dennis Quaid, who did a superb job, I think, of not only capturing Ronald Reagan's speech and his mannerisms, but also the essence of who the man really was. This story, the story of Reagan, is not just the story of the man who eventually became the 40th President of the United States. It is a uniquely American story. I believe in this film and in Reagan's life, the way the film presents it. We see who we really are in our hearts. A people who are willing to stand up and to fight for freedom when the chips are down. A people who are willing to stand up against the evils of communism and say no more. We are that shining city on a hill. And I think Ronald Reagan, if he is to be remembered for anything, one of the greatest things he should be remembered for is, number one, almost single-handedly ending the Cold War, and number two, and probably more importantly, inspiring the American people to be the best we can possibly be, and trying his best to get the government off our backs so we can do what Americans do, be innovative, be free, and be courageous to take the risk that no one else in the world seems to be willing to take at the rate that we are. This film reminds us of the heritage of who we really are. And it reminds us why limited government is so important. It reminds us that at least still in this country, at least to some degree, that an American can be whoever he wants to be. We see a young man in Reagan who grew up in a rural community and had a strong faith, which led him to be a rabid anti-communist. Why? Because let's face facts, guys. If communism takes over, you can forget Christianity. And Reagan understood this. And Reagan's faith guided, I believe, every single major decision that he made for this country. And even though he failed multiple times, he failed as an actor, he got to the point to where he wasn't even doing movies anymore. He was doing commercials and struggling to do gigs in Vegas just to make bills. But his failure ultimately ended up being his success. Why? Because he kept faith. The faith that his mother instilled in him as a child became real to him. And he understood that there was something important, an important calling that God had on his life. And he understood that he was going to be a voice to stand up against communism. And it highlights that all the way through his acting career. He got involved in the Actors Guild and rooted out communists during the Red Scare. But also said, at the end of the day, even though communists were a threat, he believed that democracy could handle it, and that individual people should not be persecuted for wanting to form a party that stood against the very American ideals of this country. He believed that we could take it, and it struck at the core of who we are to be able to suppress an individual's right to be able to advocate for whatever form of government that they wanted. He believed that there was room enough for us all. But at the same time, he used his voice to advocate for limited government and for freedom. He also used his voice to advocate for a strong American presence in the world, to lead and to be peaceful through an example of strength and diplomacy, not through the threat of war, but to also show that I'm not going to be pushed around, and we're not going to let some communist come around and bully us. Doesn't that sound like the sort of leader we need today? Ronald Reagan understood that without America, there is no other place to go in the world. America is it. And he took the guiding principles of limited government and demonstrated them for the whole world to see. It should also tell you something about a man when a former enemy, Mikhail Gorbachev, the president of the USSR, attended Ronald Reagan's funeral after he passed away out of a sign of respect for the kind of leader he was. This was a man who knew that America needed a strong presence, but that diplomacy was important, and that war should not always be the first option. That seems like advice that we should be able to remember and that we would benefit from today. I also want to highlight the fact that I loved that this movie shone a spotlight on the love story between Ronald and Nancy Reagan. I don't believe Ronald Wilson Reagan could have been the 40th president of the United States without Nancy. I believe Nancy truly brought out the best in Ron. She believed in him. She believed in his goals and his mission. And most importantly, she really loved the man he was. She loved him as he was. And that is beautiful. That is Christ-like. And Christ is all through this man's life and all through this film. You can see the handiwork of God in the life of Ronald Reagan. And I love that this film did not shy away from that. I also want to recommend that you go watch the interview with Glenn Beck that Dennis Quaid did on this film. He highlights how proud he is of this film and the painstaking research he did to make sure that he got the story right. He said that he was scared of this film because he wanted to make sure that he got the character right. He wanted to make sure that he was true to who Reagan really was, and I believe he knocked it out of the park. But now, this is his proudest role. And the conversation between Glenn and Dennis Quaid is beautiful. And I believe that it adds a deeper context to what the movie is trying to display. I'll post a link to that interview in the description of this video. I highly recommend you check that out as well. Please go watch this movie. I promise you, it will make you cry. You will leave feeling inspired and proud to be an American. That is my hope, and that is my prayer, that this movie would serve as a catalyst to remind you of the beautiful heritage that we have here in the land of the free. Please do me a favor. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more content.